Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. I am, as always, Chat Show. How the hell are you? No, really. How are you? A lot of hosts and hostesses ask the question. Maybe even people you know. Hey, how are you? What is the percentage that actually care? And are just using it as a greeting? I want to know. Write to us, please. kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. KPCS, as in Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. fanmail@gmail.com. To show you that I care, before I get to our guest, can't be inexplicably because I can't explain it. I'm looking for all the descriptive. Unnecessarily, no. Oddly, no. Weirdly, no. Enthusiastically excited about our guest today.
Excited would have just worked.
Yeah. Well, no. I say no. I needed to put exclamation points.
You're right. You have to be enthusiastic. You're right. Excited's not enough.
No, it isn't. I need to be painfully excited.
Painfully
excited.
Yeah.
It's excruciatingly excited.
I know I was told to be quiet.
No. This is perfect. I'm going to read a couple of fan mails and thank folks for being here and listening. Hey, Kevin, Sam, and Jamie. Sam and Jamie not here. That's not the voice of either. I just wanted to say thanks for all the great shows and comedy. I'm an EMT in New York City, and your show gets me through some of the darker days, especially when we have rough calls. Kevin, I also want to let you know that my father works on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel as one of the old-time cab drivers and has talked about the show constantly. Can't wait for season 2. Keep up all the great work. Thanks again. Logan Myers. Yes, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is a show on the Amazon that I'm now in season 2, a series regular. I was upgraded from recurring, although my dear friend, who I miss horribly, Brian Dole Murray, would say, I love recurring. Yeah, they're always happy to see you. Series regular now. We just started back up on season 2. And unbelievably excited and happy to be a part of that process. So it's nice to hear from folks who are enjoying the damn show. So thank you for that, Logan Myers. And I look forward to meeting your dad, who portrays one of the old-time cab drivers, according to you. Kevin, this new letter, next fan mail. Kevin and the rest of the crew, including J-Mac. Oh, our research producer. Look at that. I wanted to try and send a quick note to you for all your hard work and that you put into the Kevin Pollak Chat Show every episode. I've been a faithful listener since episode number 8. Well, we're at 353 today, so wow, that's a lot of time. I listen on my iTunes account. Do you? And I have to use audio only because I'm a professional clown. Wait for it. As well as a school teacher, and the only opportunity I really get to listen is when I'm setting up for my daily classes. The language on occasion on the show gets a little bit too coarse for me to put it over the speakers at school, so I have to use earbuds. But I love what I hear. Please keep up the good work. Personally, Kevin, you need to continue to repeat the stories that Jamie tells you not to repeat. Some new listeners may not know the stories. It's still great fun to hear the reaction of your guests when you tell a story that we may have heard a few times already. To keep it as simple and as short as possible, thank you for everything you guys do. Rick Pretzel the Clown DeLung. Well, Rick, thank you for your glowing reviews and patronage. And write again and let me know how things are going in the clown world. I'm not one of those people who have a deep fear of clowns. I am excited to actually meet a clown. I've never met one out of garb. I've never met a clown out of uniform, and I would love to hear more about it, and I'm not kidding. So please write back to us, kpcsfanmail@gmail.com, and thank you for that. All right. That is the business at hand, and now I can get to our guest today, who's been very patient, and I thank him for that. Please welcome a comedy hero to many, myself included, Mr. Scott Thompson.
Well, nice to be here. I am abominably excited.
How nice!
I noticed I couldn't help but psychoanalyze you with the excited part. Because before, when you introduced me, you wanted to say you couldn't leave excited alone.
I couldn't.
You had to add something to it, an adjective.
Did. Yeah.
And then you said later, when you were doing your announcements, that you were unbelievably excited about something.
Yes.
About it. And then you did. You left it alone, and then you said, I'm excited, and you just said excited. to meet the clown.
So now we know it'll downgraded?
Which means that you're not excited. That's what I said.
That's the takeaway?
That's my takeaway.
Sure.
Is that when you say excited, you don't really mean it.
Uh-huh.
And
it's only when I put an adjective in front of it that it becomes real.
Which is funny because it's not really a word that needs it.
Not at all.
But we are in the time when people unnecessarily abjectivize.
Sure.
I think people, they use too many words.
Yeah. Well,
nowadays.
when you're texting, I find when I'm texting people that are a daily part of my life, if I don't put an exclamation point at the end of a fairly calm sentence, I think they won't think that I meant it.
I think I think you're right.
Yeah.
I do. I do.
How are you doing? It's not a question mark anymore.
It's not. No.
It's a question mark and an exclamation point.
It doesn't. But that means you're saying that you really care because you said at the beginning that you really do care. And I do think you do care.
Yeah.
But I don't think you care about the feelings of clowns. I just don't. That's my take.
You're not projecting?
No, not at all. Well, I mean, I don't have a terror of clowns, but I don't have a love. Let me just leave it at that.
Sure.
I'm quite...
One of the games I like to play on the show every now and then is What Would It Take? So in this case, what would it take will take the form of, for the next year, I need you to be a professional clown. I need you to perform at parties. I need you to wear red nose and makeup and the outfit.
Okay.
Now, the game is what would it take? So now for you, I just need you to pick a number.
Okay.
For this year, what's it going to take for the year? I need you to do.
You mean money? How much money?
I do mean money because I'm going to need you to do 2 shows, 40 weekends out of 52.
Are they close, or do I have to fly to these? Gigs?
Is this a factoring measure?
Yeah, it is. And do I have to fly in costume?
You don't have to fly in costume.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
But I will need you to travel 12 of the 40 shows.
That's a lot. I'm gonna need at least a cool mill. I'm gonna need a cool mill. I am. Do you think that?
I thank you for your honesty because everyone has a number.
Yeah, it's definitely. I always just say a mill, even when I was a kid and the mill meant something. Now I still say a cool mill.
There was a time, or so the legend goes, that people were wondering why. And now I'm spacing on the actor's name. Everyone does.
Walter Brennan,
the British actor.
James Mason.
He became the Albert in the Batman movies. Michael Caine.
Michael Caine, yes.
So there was a while where the script might have been in the 90s where like myself did far too many films unnecessarily, where he said to his agent, "Here's the price. You don't even need to send me the script. If they agree to this price, then I'm going."
Did you do that too?
Well, I didn't.
No.
He was the star of movies.
Right.
So as a character actor, I could make a very handsome living in the 90s.
Yeah.
But, and you may relate to this, when you come from doing live comedy, be it sketch or stand-up, when you start out in those venues, you say yes to every opportunity because you're excited to get stage time. And you're growing an act.
Yeah.
So there's never a, should I play Sammy's Shithouse this weekend? The answer is yes. Yes, I should.
Of course you should.
To get on stage. So because I'd come from stand-up comedy for many, many years before I got into the acting opportunities, after A Few Good Men, which was 92, and I went from auditioning to getting offers, this script had to be horrible for me to say no because as a comedian, the answer was always yes. I can't believe I get stage time.
Yeah.
And because I wasn't a trained actor, I was sort of earning while I was learning.
Right.
Each one of these opportunities was not just a surprise that someone was requesting me, but that I could learn something from this. And the only time I said no that became remarkable, because I would love to hear your experiences, the most powerful word in show business is no. Because when you say no and you mean it, then the money just goes up. Because they think like,
well, that's why I said no to this.
That's right.
Originally, and then they offered me I'm not going to say how much without
Please
being
don't.
crass. I went, I can't afford not to do it.
We made it fiscally irresponsible.
Yes.
So
and I thought, I'm going to learn something.
Yeah, you're going to learn something.
Yes.
You already have.
I have.
That I need to put an adjective on excitement. So the one time that I said no and I meant it, the number got to such a level that it sort of became historical that I turned down that amount. Mm-hmm. But I had a very specific reason. I didn't have respect for the lead. Oh. Not only did I not have respect, I had
contempt.
There it is. Yeah. That's the word. I had such contempt that the idea of playing second banana to this person I had contempt for was not going to happen.
And was it a personal contempt or something that you...
Professional.
Professional.
I didn't know them at all.
Oh, so you never had an encounter?
Never had an encounter.
And in the years that have passed since, have you come to regret that decision?
No.
So do you think you think it was right?
I know it was right.
And is this person now been dragged out into the light and
for my reasons of contempt?
Yes.
No, this person has had a lovely career and has a great fan base. Okay. I just don't drink from that Kool-Aid.
Okay.
Yeah. And the idea of playing second banana in a film.
Mm-hmm. And yet you might have had amazing chemistry.
Because
that's quite often the case.
Yes. It has been the case.
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh, that's interesting.
It has been the case when to a lesser degree, mm-hmm. I didn't have contempt, but I didn't have a great deal of respect for.
And that you found you had chemistry.
That we ended up having chemistry, but the contempt was I was vehement.
Yeah,
and so I'm less vehement, and maybe contempt is too harsh, but I still have zero respect for this talent.
This person. I'm not going to ask who it is because that would be crass.
It is.
And you wouldn't tell me anyways. I'm sure you've told people have asked you many times.
Yeah, I'd be happy to tell you off mic.
Yeah,
sure. But it almost doesn't matter because it isn't even germane to the experience, right. Which is, are you able to say no and mean it? Mm-hmm. No matter how the show business decides that just means you want more money.
And I'm not able to mean it yet. So maybe that's why I've been sort of in a holding pattern for 20 years.
There's no one you have contempt for?
Oh, God. I have a list of people I've contempt. I mean, longer than Arya's list on Game of Thrones. You know, I go to bed every night and I write this list out and I say I vow revenge. Now, that's not actually true.
No, not vowing revenge, but I will ask you this because I wonder if we have similar feelings about this. I still have a problem when people succeed beyond their talent, when they wildly succeed.
Well, how do you manage? Because that's
show business.
More often the case. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
I think very few people succeed at actually the exact level of their talent.
That's right. And there are many who have great talent that don't succeed because they didn't get a lucky break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very, very true.
Yeah.
So, but my thing is, I've been working very hard at winnowing my list down.
Good.
Because it grew for years and years. And then the other day, this has actually just happened recently, but a month ago, I thought, this is stupid. I'm actually in a place in my life and my career where I might actually make a little jump that I've been waiting for a long, long time to happen. And if I do that, do
you want to take that contempt with you?
Like this bag that I've been carrying around of all the people that have wronged me is going to drag me down.
Yeah.
And so I had to literally forgive. So I wrote it all down, and it was extensive. I mean, it was 2 pages.
That is extensive.
Of people that I considered wrong. Not even just people, but institutions and people.
Yes.
And I wrote it all down, and then I did a little ceremony. I read each one, and I said out loud what it was that they had done to me. And then I basically said, I forgive. And then I would move on. And then when I got to the very end of the list, I burned it.
That's fantastic.
And and I'm not saying it was like overnight, like, oh, I felt light, but I did have a very good sleep that night.
Of course.
And
that's a hell of a process.
Yeah, and I do believe that it helped because there are certain things, certain people and certain institutions possibly that do keep raising their ugly head. But then I go, well, then I've done it again since, where I went, okay, there were about 10 people, things that on the list that seem to need they need another round of chemo.
Yes.
And so I did. And so, but there's still about 5 barnacles, like 5 hateful barnacles that I'm finding very difficult to dislodge. But I think after today, I'm going to write that list and I'm going to dislodge them.
Oh, wow.
Because I really think it's important because you come to a point in your life when you're like, it's not helping me. No one really cares. And
so why did you?
And life moves on, and it's silly.
What about also maybe factoring in that, they say you don't learn from success, you learn from failure. So maybe
Yes.
you don't learn from easy relationships, respectful relationships. You learn from the ones that you have contempt for. Right?
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I'm not saying you learn more from a mistake or a failure. Actually, I think you do. Actually, I do think you do.
You learn a more impactful
Yes.
lesson.
I mean, when you win, especially people that win all the time, quite often that will build like a head of really like privileged foam that you really need to back off, because eventually you have to consider the fact that you're just no one cares about your journey. They're all just consumed with their own journey.
Sure.
And the reason they did this to you was something that maybe happened to them, and maybe they're projecting something onto you. Maybe it isn't more. Maybe it is just pure hatred. That's
Rarely
fine too.
the case.
But rarely. And then maybe you also have to go, well, people are products of their time.
Yes.
And I'm going to forgive myself and my ancestors for what they've done.
Right.
So I have to forgive people that behaved in a way that might have been more, let's say, conducive or amenable to like the 90s or the 80s than they are now.
Sure.
So I am trying to let go of that. But there are still a few that are clinging.
I think you take back the power when you forgive.
I think so. I really do think forgiveness it's incredibly powerful. Like, I think one of the things that really struck me was years ago, there was that guy, he murdered all those Amish kids. Do you remember that?
Amish kids.
Yeah, or Quakers. Quakers or Amish, one of the peaceful sect, and people that believe in absolutely no revenge and no hatred, and they also live in the past. They don't believe in electricity as well. But they immediately after this guy, he shot up a school. I think it was a Quaker school. Killed children, and that night the women in the community went over to that man, the father of the boy, and with pies and cakes, and forgave him. He had killed their children, and they were capable of forgiving him. Not years later, hours later, and they had the wherewithal to make a pie. Like, that's where I'm not yet there. Like, I can forgive, but I can't make the pie. I can't make the pie.
That is beyond the call. That is a very special breed of cat.
It's
that hours after losing a child.
And some people might say, well, like
madness.
Like, that's like, wow, what a loser. But I just think they have it figured out.
Yes. I would say that's a higher being.
I'm not capable of that. And I think that is something to aim for.
I'll also tell you that I don't trust that person.
The murder or the forgiveness?
I don't trust the forgiveness.
But you don't forgive
within hours.
What? I mean, but all of the community did.
Yeah. I am suspicious immediately.
Well, I think that
that's the devil's work.
They probably went home and maybe wept. Of course they did.
Well, sure. But, and I'm being facetious.
I know you are.
But at the same time,
I know.
I am. Look, you can't help but say, wow, and what the hell are you talking about? That didn't really happen.
Right.
When you hear a story like within hours. They're making pies. As opposed to, look, if you're forgiving without the pie, that seems more doable for me.
Maybe a square, maybe squares, like lemon squares. Lemon squares.
Because there's a little bitterness.
Yes. I want to get I'll probably never get to the pie stage. I'll never get to the cobbler stage. But I might get to the lemon
square.
Or date squares.
Well, but I can feel a little bit of the bitterness with the lemon square. I can hold on to a little bit of it. I want to hear about the excitement.
The unbelievable excitement.
The level of excitement about this precipice you just sort of might have mentioned in brief.
Yes.
That you're is this part of the Buddy Cole monologue?
Yes.
And so this is unbelievably exciting to me, and I'll say unbelievably with all due respect to the jokes we've already done about my adjectives, but you did shows in New York already with this?
Yes, I'm just basically at the end of this tour. I've been here for about 5 days. In between, I have tomorrow I do the last show in LA at UCB Franklin, and that will be the last Buddy Cole show in LA for a while. Then I go to Toronto and Chicago, and then it's done for a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And how has the experience been?
It's been remarkable. Right. I mean, can I say unbelievably remarkable?
I wish you would.
It has been. It's kind of freaking me out.
Well, so let's if you don't mind,
Yes.
go back to the genesis, and then we'll get.
Sure.
We'll come back to the freaked out nature of,
Okay.
of success, because it sometimes can be careful what you wish.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So the genesis was the Buddy Cole character, of course, has been celebrated for many years.
Yes.
Although a struggle at first,
Oh.
because people weren't ready for the celebration of gayness.
Oh God, no. They're still. I mean, they're. It's been a sea change
Yeah.
since Buddy was born. There's
Yeah.
no question.
Right.
And that's why I decided to do it again. That's why I decided to move back to the States a year and a half ago, and why I decided to put basically not all my eggs in one basket, but definitely Buddy's got a big basket, so I put most of my eggs in his basket because I just felt that this time that we're in right now, this polarizing, shifting time where
Yes.
the earth has become quicksand.
Yes.
And we don't know where we're going. To me, it's very reminiscent of the late 80s, early 90s when the kids in the hall were on top of the world. And it feels like, and for me personally, as an openly gay, person, an artist, whatever, society made a shift. The last 5 years, a tipping point happened where it was no longer cool to be openly homophobic. And that is something I've been waiting for my entire life.
Sure, of course.
And suddenly I realized, I can go back to LA, and all of the dreams that I thought were going to come to me years ago when I was painfully naive now might happen.
Right.
And people might actually want to help me. And that just, that blew me away. And so I just went, okay, I'm going to give it one more chance. I've got the energy still. I spent 9 years back home in Canada reinventing myself, becoming a stand-up and just working, working and not ignoring what happens here. You can't ignore what happens here.
No.
But then I went, you know what? I think it's time. The wounds are papered over. I'm going to go back and I'm going to give it another shot. And it's working out.
This version of a Buddy Cole show started
about a year ago. I started putting it together.
Okay.
And the thing is, it's basically a collection of monologues from 95, or actually 93 is the first one's written. But basically the end of The Kids in the Hall on television, which ended in 95 to now. So none of them have been on television, and they basically chronicle the last 23, 25 years through Buddy's eyes. Oh. And because I've always written for him, because he's the kind of a guy that he can say anything. And my show's appalling. Like, it's just appalling. And everyone says, you can't do that.
Right.
You're not going to get away with those jokes. And
but
I go,
Buddy can.
But I know I can't. But he can.
Yes.
They just have to listen to this old queen.
That's right.
I think they look at him and they go, this guy's seen action.
Yeah.
He's been in foxholes. He's seen real shit.
These are stories from the front line.
Yes, and he survived, and you're going to listen to Gramps.
Yeah.
And
that's sort of brutal honesty, and I don't have time for this anymore.
Right.
Or
that's true.
Yeah. One of the funniest people I've ever known, he was a real estate broker. We lost him to AIDS. Had a freedom of speech that was unedited and clean, and so without reverence or remorse or regret that it was undeniably funny.
Yeah.
And instantly enthralling because of the freedom with which it was being shared. Mm-hmm. There's something about that power.
It is. It's exhilarating.
Yes.
I think it's exhilarating for me to do,
and
I think it's exhilarating for people to watch, because they're seeing this guy, a white man who aren't allowed to say anything. But I'm a gay white man, and I'm not a young gay white man. So I came of age in a war. So for me, I have nothing to apologize for. I don't have to virtue signal in any way.
Right.
I don't have, like everyone else has to, I don't have to let people know what my politics are. I don't give a you know what.
Sure.
I just go, no, I've been waiting for this, and I'm a gay man from a generation which saw hell. So if in this world, which right now is all about who's the bigger victim, I'm like, honey, you're just not going to touch me. Like, we win.
Yeah.
And so I think, especially like the young ones, the young social justice warriors who are just armed and ready, to attack people with their keyboards, I think they can't really attack Buddy, because even if they do, he'll just go, oh, sweetheart, calm down. It's just a joke, and there'll be one you'll like in a minute. And I think that's it. It's just, I don't give them time.
Right.
I just don't give them time.
Unrelenting.
It's unrelenting. It's the funniest show I've ever done, because it took me 23 years to write.
Sure.
And
it's being heralded.
People are liking it.
Yeah, they are.
They really are.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, every time I do a show, my director, Robin, will say, well, this is the one. This is the one. This is the one. And they don't.
Yeah.
And I've had many people, I'm one of the kings of walkouts and people throwing things and saying, you can't say that. I mean, I get that all the time. I mean, Kevin McDonald and I toured 6 years ago together, and we had shoes thrown at us for things. I mean, I've had shoes thrown at me by people that are outraged.
Which, by the way, not only takes a certain level of unhappiness from an audience member, you're going to leave without a shoe.
Without a shoe. These are women without a heel. Without a heel. Like, not an old stinky runner, but I'm talking about
It's a commitment.
Take it off. Think about it. Like, I don't know. I don't need this shoe. I hate. They just whipped it at me. I mean,
yeah.
I just.
Or are they dressed in shoes in anticipation?
I think so. I think that's it. I hate these shoes, and that guy might bug me, so I can throw it out. Or
imagine
it was day one of a shoe, and they went, "Oh, I'm not going to get a blister," and they didn't put a
these aren't comfortable
on.
Anyways.
So, and it was in San Francisco, and it was a lot of like. It was hippies, so they didn't have nice shoes.
No. There was a lot of Birkenstocks.
There's a lot of Birkenstocks.
My hometown, San Francisco.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
What are some of the towns that you enjoy performing in most? Because I feel that becomes a trend for us.
Yeah.
There are certain towns that or venues. Uh-huh. It isn't necessarily a city that you should give credit to.
Well, I just got back from Austin, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience.
The Moon Tower Festival?
Yeah, the Moon Tower Festival, yeah.
Right.
Boston's always a great town. It's always been a great town for the kids in the hall. Ironically, a lot of the cities in the South have always been great to me and the kids in the hall.
Like?
I think because people are more desperate for our kind of comedy. I think, like a place like San Francisco, which you would think would be number one, not really, because those are the homes of people that are so easily outraged.
Yes.
So for me, I like it better. Like a place like Dallas has always been great to the kids in the hall. They love us in Dallas. They love us in Houston. But this tour, Denver went really very well.
Love Denver.
Chicago, I'm coming up on, which I love. There aren't many cities I hate right now, and if I do, I'll put them on a list tonight and burn them. Yeah. Talking to you, Santa Fe. No, I'm not Santa Fe. Not Santa Fe. San Antonio.
Sure.
It's San Antonio, yes.
Are you in talks to have this show filmed?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
And tomorrow night at UCB, we have a bunch of executives from
Right.
like HBO and Netflix coming.
Right.
And my dream is basically a Buddy Cole special.
Sure,
yes.
sure,
That
of
is that is my dream.
Yeah. I can't fathom a situation because I think you're right about the timing.
Yeah, the timing is right.
Spectacular.
It is.
For let's cut through it.
Yeah, and especially we live in a time where comedians are they're so about right now. They're timid. A lot of timidity in comedy.
Well, yeah, the culture is this sort of PC.
Yes, and men particularly, especially white men, straight white men, just don't say boo.
Yeah.
I find a lot of them have retreated into surrealism and silliness, and these are all wonderful parts of comedy.
Sure.
But they rarely go for it any longer. Right. Even their body language I find different.
Right.
Like people are so
Interesting.
worried about, like they're even that whole kind of like aggressive stance in comedy, I find with men, particularly straight white men again, they're pulling up, they're standing straighter, they're not leaning in as much.
Interesting.
And it's something I'm noticing. And me, I'm going further.
Yeah.
And it's very exciting, and because it's true, it's a time that's very polarizing, and I don't have to I feel like I occupy the middle, and everyone's abandoning the middle, and I think that's where the truth lies, and so I'm just running down that middle, trying to slap everybody on both sides.
Oh, that's great.
Because that's my thing about comedy. This whole idea that's come about the last few years that certain topics are taboo, I just reject it. And this idea that you have to always let everyone know where you stand. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You just have to be funny.
Yeah, you just have to be funny is right.
Just have to
and
be
taking
funny.
a shot at both sides is so smart.
And no one's doing it. And I was like,
because they both deserve shots.
Absolutely. This country, as a Canadian, as an outsider who's watched this country and lived in this country and participated in it, for many, many years and loved this country, I am very worried.
Sure.
I've never seen it in such a state.
Well, it hasn't been.
No, it hasn't.
Not in our lifetime.
And it's funny because there have been times, I'm old enough to remember as a child Vietnam and, the AIDS crisis and the Iraq War and 9/11. And those things seem to be bigger.
Yeah.
But it's this digging in of our heels right now.
That's right.
That I find very, very dangerous.
The polarizing aspect.
Because the next step is demonizing the other side, and that which basically means dehumanizing them.
Right.
And that's the next step towards open civil conflict.
Yeah.
And so as a comedian, I feel like my job is to continue slapping everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm very hard on myself. Buddy's not hard on himself because he's perfect. And he is. He considers himself perfect.
Great.
But he's certainly hard. He's hard on gay men. He's, you know what I mean? Or people. He's hard on everyone.
Yeah.
He basically, and this is probably my core belief, I just think most people are generally, even wonderful people, even Mother Teresa's, you know what I mean? Even they are acting for their own interests. I mean, even people that do good. And
how do you not have an agenda?
Yes, I don't believe it. Even people that that are truly altruistic, it gives them joy to be altruistic.
Sure.
So we're all I just really think that most people, left, right, whatever, they're basically acting for their own in self-interest.
Mm-hmm. Well, it may have taken 353 episodes of the Chat Show for someone to finally suggest that Mother Teresa had an agenda. But I'm glad it was today.
She did.
Yeah.
We do know that she was a piece of work. Okay, may I just say, for full disclosure, she was on my list, and she's one of the barnacles. She's one of the barnacles.
She remains one of the barnacles. Well,
the other one is Malala, which is I don't know why she bugs me so much. She didn't do anything to me.
Well, she did and she didn't.
Yeah.
Let's jump around a little because I'm fascinated by your being sent by Colbert, the Stephen, to be a correspondent in 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. What was that experience like, and how did that come about?
Well, it was an incredible experience.
Yeah,
basically, what happened was, it was the run up to the Olympics, and I was reading all about what was going on in Russia with Putin and the anti-gay laws, et cetera, et cetera. And I just had a revelation. I went, oh, Buddy's needed. I just thought, oh, Buddy, this is perfect for Buddy Cole. And so I just cold called Stephen Colbert. I mean, I didn't have I called his office. Right. And I said to my manager, I think this would be a great idea for them. They need to send someone, and I'm the perfect correspondent. So I just called. And he said, that's crazy. I said, well, I think it's going to work. So I did. And within an hour, Stephen Colbert called me back personally and said, I love this idea. Let's make it happen. And I'm like, what? And so that's what it was. And then they flew me down to New York, and I told them exactly what I wanted to do. And they told me what they wanted to do. We did a lot of what they wanted to do.
Sure.
And, and then we worked it out. So they sent me for 10 days. It was one of the greatest adventures of my life. Yeah.
How about some highlights of the actual event?
Well, I'll tell you one of the greatest highlights. There were so many highlights.
Sure.
I mean, one of the best things, it's not actually a specific highlight, but I had 2 bodyguards. Mm-hmm. And that is a dream trip for me. 2 Navy SEALs, right? 2 handsome men, a black one and a white one. Both of them,
Ebony and Ivory.
Yes, Ebony and Ivory. Both of them licensed to kill.
Sure.
That had
on
my
your behalf.
back. If that, I'll be honest, that has been an erotic
I don't
dream
think
that
you
has
have to
driven.
be a gay man to have that
I
fantasy.
mean, it is it just made me, to know that one of them was outside, they would sleep outside my door
Sure.
at night. I guess that's what marriage is. It's like love. I thought this is love. And I could never get much out of them. Like they would be, it's like, no, we got to be, they're closed mouth about their, about their
you mean
real
in
lives.
terms of engaging?
Yes. And so that was
conversation.
exciting. But the best part, I think, of the whole trip was when we went to the protest site. Just outside of Sochi, actually like an hour outside of Sochi, where people were supposed to, where you could protest legitimately. And so it was, and we had to get there, you had to walk past this long building that you knew was filled with soldiers because it was all blacked out windows, et cetera. And there was military everywhere. So I was in one of my great outfits that they provided. I had a big, faux fur, and this one was inspired by Dr. Zhivago. Most of my looks were inspired by Dr. Zhivago. That's all I wanted.
Buddy Cole's Dr. Zhivago fantasy.
All I ever wanted since I was a little boy was to wear that fur hat that Julie Christie wears.
Better believe it.
Dr. Zhivago. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
Every look in that, and then at the end of this, I think I'll have my Omar Sharif will be waiting.
That's right.
So we had a martini, and the camera followed me, and I just marched for like 10 minutes.
Sure.
By all the soldiers, all the windows, proud as can be, with my martini, not spilling a drop. Then we get to the protest site. There's no one there, just a bunch of like ragamuffin kids playing with a stick.
Yes.
No one there, like a couple of people on strollers, like just nothing, no one there. And so I thought, well, let's throw a protest. So I'd run out of vodka in my drink, and I thought, oh, I have a great idea for protest. This is no more vodka. This is outrageous. This will not stand. So I basically started chanting, we need vodka. I need a drink. And that was my protest. Because for me, with Buddy, and that kind of a classic gay archetype, you reduce everything important down to something that's very shallow.
Yeah,
it's a classic gay way of. In a way, it's basically one of the tenets of camp. In a way, you reduce what the outside world sees as massively important, and you turn it into like a bonbon, just something silly.
Right.
So I did. I kept chanting and chanting, and they said, "What are you doing?" Well, I think we'll just do it until we attract someone. And the next thing we knew, suddenly I looked to my left, and there's like another sight that I've been waiting for my whole life. 4 Cossacks, right? Lined up, like dressed like Cossacks, marching towards me. Then a couple of other military men, I don't know what branch they were from. And then in the middle, this man out of many people's nightmares, but for me, out of a James Bond fever dream. Bald, beautiful, brutal looking scar, like a zigzag scar down the front of his face, right? In black, and a long black buttery leather jacket, like a Bond villain marching towards me, and he's like Vladimir Putin, but like younger and hotter, like when he was at his hottest. Because I've always had a thing for I love actually toxic masculinity. It just turns me on. And I've always had and that was my original idea when I said to Stephen was, Buddy Cole was a lover of Putin years ago when he was with the CIA. And the reason that he's doing this is that Putin's getting back at me. So Buddy always has to reduce everything in the world to himself.
That's right.
So that's what my whole thing in Russia was. I wanted to get to Vlad, or as Buddy called him, Vlad the Impaled. And they didn't let me say that, but I'm saying it now.
Yes.
And so I look, and they come towards me, and then my
bodyguard,
and he told me earlier, he said, if I say to you these words, you do exactly what I say. And I'm like, oh, honey, no problem.
No matter what the words are.
No problem. I have no problems saying yes to a Navy SEAL. And even if it's balance this ball in the end of your nose. And he goes, and these are the words, stand down. He came over to me and he whispered in my ears, Buddy, stand down. So I did. I went and I sat down on the bench, and just like that, boom. And then I watched my producers come over in front of me, like they, like in a kind of a phalanx to protect me, which I didn't need, right? Because all I was doing was watching the bald god that has been in my mind forever.
Sure.
And he was looking at me with such hatred, but it wasn't really hatred. There was something softening it.
Behind it?
Something behind it. There was like a little tiny smile threatening to escape from his brutal tartar face. And I just knew that I could, if I made him laugh, he'd be mine. So they come over to me, and I'd learned a few words in Russian that I knew were funny.
Sure.
I'd learned a few jokes. So I went over to him and I said something to him in Russian, like something like, "That's a nice coat." Just some stupid. And he smiled. He tried not to, and I went, "He's mine. It's over."
This is after you've been told to stand down.
Well, I might have done that. Here, let's try to get this correct. Yeah, I might have done that first, and then he might have said stand down. But I did. Did I disobey him? I don't think I would have dared disobey him.
Yeah.
But I did say something to him.
But I love that you had the instinct. There's a little bit of an upturn in the corner of this guy's mouth.
Yeah.
If I could just get it all the way committed.
Yeah.
He's
And
mine.
I knew that because I thought he's probably killed.
Well, no question. And
No
by the way,
question. He's KGB. This is KGB.
Yes.
Okay. There's no question. But, I'm good with those kinds of men. And I also understand that when people laugh, they're yours. And
it's involuntary.
you can't help it. They're yours.
Yeah.
It's literally like turning a turtle on its back. I'm not going to say he was my bitch because I would be his bitch, but you know what I mean?
I do.
But, and that was it. And then they had and I could tell the producers and everybody was frantic and scared, but I was not. It was, to me, one of the greatest highlights of my life. It had everything that I wanted. Toxic masculinity, bodyguards, Russia, tyranny, heat, me being funny. It was perfection.
Yeah. And the camera caught enough of it.
Yes, and they didn't show a lot lot of it.
Sure, of
but
course.
they do show a bunch. They show some of it. They don't really show his face, but he was like Yul Brynner in King and I.
That's what I pictured.
It's Yul Brynner, and I mean I've been in love with Yul Brynner since.
How could you not?
King and I. I mean,
Sure.
I don't think there's ever been a more
toxic
man. Or more, let's use what they used to call toxic, virile.
There you go.
Yeah.
The original toxic.
Yes.
Old school toxic.
Yes.
Does Buddy Cole in the new show talk about any of his relationships in specifics?
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm, he does.
Because I find that helpful.
Yes, he does. He does. Yeah. He does. Do I reference Vlad? No, not in this show. But I do. There are 3 monologues which they're not about these lovers, but they reference certain lovers in his life. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's important.
Yeah. There's Muhammad in Egypt, and there's a few. There's a few. Yes.
I'm excited to see the show. You said tomorrow night at the UCB?
Tomorrow at UCB Franklin. Yeah.
Alrighty. That won't help the folks listening to this because we're not going out live. But I will report back the findings of the big time executives.
Well, can I say I'm going to be in Chicago at the Onion Festival.
Please.
The last week of May, first week of June for 6 dates.
Oh, that's spectacular.
Yes, and May 25th, I'm in Toronto.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We did some shows together as part of the Burlington Comedy Festival.
That's right, yes.
And there was another one.
There was Kitchener, Waterloo.
Yeah. I so enjoyed watching you perform. Honestly,
Thank you. I enjoyed watching you, too. It was wonderful.
I hadn't seen you do a solo show before. And so, it was just, here we go. Let this wash over me. And it was spectacular. Also, your relationship with the audience was great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's not always an easy task to step outside of so-called material.
Yes.
And because it is at some point, it's a weird thing. The audience wants to know they're in good hands.
Yeah.
They don't want any responsibility necessarily. Mm-hmm. And if you give them any, sometimes it's a tricky a bit of water to navigate. And I thought it was kind of all effortless.
Well, I really I consider it a dialogue. I do like talking to the audience. I'm actually not troubled by heckling.
Sure.
That sort of thing. I mean, there's certain times it can get troubling.
Sure.
But I do like to engage an audience, and I like to talk to them.
Yeah. And why not?
Yeah, well, they're there. I'm performing, and I consider it a relationship that I need to nurture.
Right.
And sometimes slap them around.
Sure. Well,
nurture. Nurture.
How else are they going to learn?
Exactly.
I want to hear, as we jump around a little bit, I'm curious what music you first fell in love with.
Oh, that would be easy. As a kid, my favorite music, and it is still to this day, would be soul music and R&B. That would be it.
And what were some of the artists that hit you first?
Al Green.
Oh, yeah.
Luther Vandross.
Sure.
Keith Sweat. Marvin Gaye, all those classics. Yeah. But my number one Sade. My two favorite singers, I guess, would be Sade and Al Green.
Wow.
And my dream, I've seen her live, but my dream is to see Al Green live. He's my favorite. He's my favorite performer of all.
That's pretty amazing.
Just there's something so, his voice is so beautiful. It's so loving.
Yeah.
You feel like you're held by him. That's my favorite kind of music.
And I read in a recent interview that your autobiography, a buddy called Buddy Babylon, you felt was not even reviewed by certain outlets.
No one. No, it was ignored 20 years ago by everybody.
There was a moment in time of homophobia at that.
Oh my Lord! It was a peak.
Yeah,
I released the book at peak homophobia,
which might not have been.
Yeah, and you see, it didn't work in many ways. It was kind of a perfect storm of being ignored, because first of all, in the comedy world, let's say, a lot of times, like, men don't want to say they love him or that, because that will impugn their own sexuality.
Sure.
And gays don't want to say they love it, because then another gay man might feel good, and gay men don't want to do that.
No.
They only want to make women feel good, and that's the truth. Gay men will only see female comedians, and so it was ignored by the gay community. It was ignored by the literary, and then Canada. The other part of it, perfect storm, is that Canada, and it's a very Canadian book. Canada is a very pretentious country. Literary world is very pretentious, very anti-comedy.
Oh, wow.
It's a very dour world, and we produce the funniest people in, I think, the English-speaking world, and then we kick them out.
Wow.
And so it really got it got ignored, I think, a lot. And also, it was a time of, again, quite a polarizing time. And Buddy Cole doesn't take prisoners. And a lot of, there were maybe 2 reviews, and they called it, racist or homophobic, all those buzzwords.
Sure.
And it's like, anyway, I didn't even know how to respond. So it was roundly ignored. And yet it never was in a bargain bin. Like, it always kept getting sold. And it's the thing, I wrote it with Paul Bellini. It's the thing I'm most proud of. And I just thought 20 years later, there's been a huge cultural shift.
Yeah.
Maybe it will get its due now.
A re-release?
So they've re-released it. It's exclusively on Amazon, and it's selling very well, and it's wonderful. And also, I put back, there were like 40 pages taken out, not because of censorship, but because they felt that the book was too long.
Okay.
They expected a kind of a book with, like, one joke on a page, and it's a dense novel. It's a picaresque novel modeled on Candide, so it's a pretentious book.
Sure.
And it's super pretentious. I mean, yeah, it's called Buddy Candide. It is. And they just said, this is too long. You can't have a 350-page book. And it was. But then this time along, I went, I want this back in. And they agreed. And now it's out there. And my dream is for it to be a review. I want a New York Times review more than I want anything right now. And I want people to see it for its merits, and to not see it through the lens of homophobia, or also through the lens of trying to prove that you're not homophobic.
Right.
There's just so many, things that the way people look at things. And so I'm hoping that it'll get its due.
Yeah. Oh, I do too.
Thank you.
Honestly and truly, and I can't wait for my autograph copy.
I should have brought it.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
I'll send it to you.
Oh, I'll find it. Okay. When you started a number of years ago shifting to stand-up comedy, and the idea of designing a stand-up act, was it, what parts of it, if there were, that were inspired by stand-up performers you had seen? I feel like we're all inspired by someone or something. So I'm curious what your inspirations were.
Well, when I was a kid, let's say my favorite stand-up would have been Richard Pryor. As an older person, as I started, and I wasn't one of those kids that lived for stand-up comedy. My thing was I liked sketch comedy.
Sure.
I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a serious actor who was funny on talk shows. That was my goal. But
that was the initial plan.
That was my initial plan. I wanted to be like Burt Reynolds.
And what age was that plan
very young.
Formulated?
Very young. I never told anyone.
10?
Yeah. I'm going to be a movie star.
Me too.
I'm going to be a movie star. Yeah. I'm going to play very serious parts.
Right.
And then on talk shows, I'm going to be just hilarious.
A hoot.
A hoot. And that didn't work out. Although parts of it did work out. The talk show part did work out for quite a while. I had a good run on Conan. And but like right now, the people that I really like I love Bill Burr. I love Ali Wong. Those are the comedians I love right now. Those are my two favorites. But my favorite performer of all time would be Barry Humphries.
Oh yeah,
who is Dame Edna,
of course.
But I would say he would probably be my biggest influence.
Yeah.
And that's what Buddy comes from. That Buddy comes from that branch. And what I've done with the stand-up is I've kind of given the skills that I learned over the last 8-9 years, and over most of my career too, dabbling in it. But I really concentrated the last 2 years. In the 8 years, I gave those skills to him. Because before, Buddy always sat in a stool and he was quite passive physically, and now he's not. Now he moves. Now I can do stand-up, and he can do stand-up.
Right.
And this show, there are certain things that I touch on that I don't think I can do, but he can.
Oh, yeah.
He can.
Well, that was the thing, of course, about Dame Edna as well.
She could say anything.
Yeah, that's right.
And in fact, people wanted to be insulted by her.
That's right.
Like Don Rickles, another one of my. Actually, Don Rickles was a huge influence, and
John Rickles on talk shows also.
Yes, Joan Rivers; those were big influences on me.
Yeah.
And interesting. I just watched a documentary on Barry Humphries, and I think the key difference between Buddy and Edna is that she knows nothing. But she acts like she knows everything. But Buddy actually does know a lot.
Right.
And he does act like he knows everything.
Sure.
So they are different people, but the one thing they have in common, which is this like world, just gigantic self-confidence.
Right.
Which I don't have. But
it's nice to play that personification.
It is to someone that knows exactly who they are at every moment, doesn't apologize for anything.
No.
And that kind of enormous self-confidence is that is taken totally from Dame Edna.
And what is your writing rituals and processes?
Oh, there's so many weird things that I do when I write. It's embarrassing.
Okay, well, any one that you can share that's not as embarrassing?
Not really. It's all, I wish I could be a healthier writer, like get up in the morning.
I'm not sure that's a thing.
I don't know. I know people that do it.
Well, that's just discipline.
Yeah, I wish I had more discipline. I'm trying to get more discipline in my writing now, because a lot of it is done late at night. That sort of thing.
I have that also.
And that's difficult. But with the stand-up, as I developed an act, which is I thought I want an act. I don't want, because I was doing Uncabaret before years ago with Beth Lapidus and all that world, and I really enjoyed it. But I never felt like I had an act. I go up with a topic, and then I'd never do it again.
Right.
And so I was always feeling like I can't do this. Isn't stand up, and it's not really.
Sure.
It's not.
It's a form of improvisation.
Yes, it is.
Through the eyes of a character.
Yes. Yeah. And so I went. I want
structure.
I want an act. I want structure. I want to go from one topic to another. I want an album. I have my first album coming out.
Yeah.
And I don't know what my point was. I lost my point.
Well, just in terms of writing, writing
and a lot of this act that I wrote, which will be in my album, a lot of it was developed on stage.
Yeah.
Like when I first started, like it was about 2010 when I started doing this, because I got cancer in 2009, and that's what made me go home, because I didn't have health care here. And then when I was better, or at least well enough to go on stage, I thought, well, I have nothing to be afraid of any longer. And stand-up's always the thing that I've been terrified of, and people have always tried to push me into it, and I resented it.
Sure.
And now I can go, no, I'm not afraid of it anymore. And so when I was well enough to get back up on stage, I really went out with just nothing, like just a note, this idea. And so I thought, no, I'm going to develop it with the audience.
Yeah.
And so that was a very different thing. Before, I would write things out, memorize them, and then do them. And then I thought, that's not stand-up. That's a one-man show.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, the combination of both.
And that's the thing. And now the Buddy Show is a combination of both because it is very written. But I improvise, I play with the audience, and I'm confident enough now to do all that. And I wasn't before.
Well, that confidence allows you to be present.
Yes, and that's the beauty of stand-up, which I went, like one of the reasons I never would have called myself a stand-up pre-2009 was because I thought I admire this art form too much. I'm in awe of great stand-up. So I'm not going to, and I've seen too many actors who went, I'm going to do stand-up, I'm going to write an act, and I'm going to talk about what it was like being on Saved by the Bell. And I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy. I don't hope, was there someone from Saved by the Bell?
It's a good reference point.
Yeah, but might have been, did Screech become a stand-up?
Let's hope.
Yeah. And so.
If there's a God.
Yeah, I went, no, I'm going to, and then it was only the last 2 years since when I thought I was ready that I can actually say, yeah, I consider stand-up part of I can call myself a stand-up now as well.
Yeah.
And it's good because I it's always been the branch of comedy that I consider the highest peak. And I thought, well, I'll never get there. And also as a young kid, the way I was and the time I grew up on, I thought a great stand-up talks about their life. And I can't talk about my life. I have to keep it a secret. So I can be a sketch comic. And if I was a young person today, I'd probably have gone directly into stand-up.
Wow.
But not then. It was not encouraged. It wasn't possible.
Right.
It really wasn't possible. But now I feel like, I'll follow a stand-up that I love. And like I followed, in Austin, I followed like Tiffany Haddish. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm following Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm not freaked out.
Right.
That's
exactly it.
Yeah.
Well, all the timing of what you've just described seemed like it hit the apex at a kind of perfect moment where you were experienced and evolved as a performer, as a writer, as a comedic mind. You had all these tools.
Yeah,
right?
I've been like I'm a strong pot of tea now. I've been steeping for a long time.
Yeah, well put. We're just about out of time. I want to thank you endlessly. I've been a fan forever since the first time I started watching Kids in the Hall. We've sort of crossed paths here and there, and I've always wanted to just sort of have a chat. And
yeah, me too. This has been really fun.
I greatly appreciate it. We have a couple of rituals here.
Okay.
One of them is called Ask Kevin. You're now You're now encouraged to ask me any question. Could be silly or sincere or neither.
Oh, how do you look so good?
Well,
no, you look really good. Really excellent.
I turned 60 the end of October.
You're aging really well.
Well, my better half, she's the math is inexplicable. Although she can do math problems of someone in her 40s, she's barely in her mid 30s, and so we've been together 10 years. I raised her as one of my own. She's corn fed, so I've been sucking the life force.
You've been stealing those
when she goes to sleep,
cells.
like you've seen a cat over a crib,
like a succubus. Of course, yeah. You perch overnight and you suck in that young air.
Yeah. No,
which is why you don't snore.
That's exactly right.
Who would snore when you're sleeping beside a 30-year-old? You would dare.
Yeah. So a lot of it's genetics, but also I tried to avoid reflecting devices, otherwise known as mirrors. So, because the eyes you look out of are never the same age as the eyes looking back at you in a mirror.
No, never.
Yeah, and so it's all been a frame of mind. I started out as 10 going on 40.
Right.
And now I'm 60 going on 40.
Oh, okay.
So 40 seems to be the pocket for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And 40 is where I think that's what all the men that I like are 40.
Yeah.
I'm like Elizabeth Taylor. When she was 20, she married a 40-year-old. When she was 60, she married a 40-year-old.
Well, there's something.
That's the pocket.
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think I knew it until just now. So thank you for helping me focus my numbers. What a great question! And
did no one ever ask? No, I think
humbling.
you look. I was thinking about that, going, he's looking really good.
You're
aging really well. And I mean, I think it's probably because you were never a great beauty.
Nope.
Right.
Didn't have to depend on the looks.
You didn't have. You're not going to lose it.
Right.
And when you're not a great beauty, you can actually get better looking.
Surprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you keep yourself together.
Right.
And so
little genetics in your
favor. I think you've done very well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to be shallow, but I thought that's an important thing. Especially in this business.
Yeah, especially in this business.
Yeah.
Well, I've tried to care less and less and avoid mirrors, as I say. But at the same time, you watch what you eat, you get on an elliptical 5 days a week.
Yeah.
You're clearly interested in longevity.
Of course.
And so it's surprising yet appreciated to hear that looking into this mirror, I'm okay.
You look good.
Well, thank you. And now it is time for Kevin's pop quiz.
Oh, okay.
Between 5 and 15 points possible for each of these 3 questions. Once the final score is tabulated, it'll be posted on our website along with the current standing among the top 100. Are you ready? Okay. Question 1. Dave Koechner or Rob Riggle?
Oh, Dave Koechner.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Carl Weathers or the weather in Carlsbad?
Oh, Carl Weathers.
Sure. And last question, Keith?
Yes.
That's correct. Yes. A perfect score. Astonishing. Well, congratulations.
Yes, Keith, of course.
Thank you so much, honestly and truly.
Thank you. I
Long
enjoyed
time fan, first time conversation.
Yeah.
And I look forward to more.
Me too.
I'm going to try to make it out to the show tomorrow.
Oh, that'd be
night.
great, Kevin.
I'm excited about this,
Thank you.
actually. Love that stage, been on it.
Oh, it's a great stage.
Kind of perfect.
It is a perfect stage.
Yeah. If I'm unable to make it, I wish you absolute success.
Thank you.
And what it could lead to.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and very excited for this time of your life.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. Now sit there and comfortably while I wrap things up for the folks at home.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. There you have episode maybe 354, if anyone's doing the math out there. Thanks to Sam, the greatest engineer who ever lived.
Oh,
should be
truly
the
my
name of
pleasure.
your third book. I'm not sure what the first 2 should be called. But thank you, Sam. And Corey Levin in post-production. Our very own Sam Levine and Jamie Foxx will be with us again soon, is all I can tell you, as we figure out the path of the chat show as it has morphed from video to audio. As we get your emails at kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. Some people are up in arms about the lack of video, but I will say, celebrating 9 years of doing the show and hearing over those 9 years how almost 90% of our audience has only been listening all of this time. Who's got time to watch anything anymore? It's a matter of ease and comfort and having people be open and enjoy a good conversation. So there's your insight for today. I think that's all the business we have for now. Until next time, and as always, get out of my face.